1. Side A. Buggy as hell.
These are the case notes of full-time queer part-time detective Trevor Campbell. That's me. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance I'm dead. Or just busy. I could be at the movies. Who's to say? Anyway, we better start at the beginning. It was 9 a.m. on a rainy Wednesday morning, mid-May, and I just accidentally inhaled a mouthful of potpourri. Let me explain. I'd been leaning down to inspect the jar above the third-floor toilet in the building where I'd recently rented an office, and I'd heaved a little too hard. Ever sucked back a jar of potpourri? Some of it's pretty sharp, most of it's dry, all of it burns. I needed a larger office because the most controversial case of my career had just landed on my desk, also rented. My career had hit the skids and money was tight, which was why I was narrating my own story. Anyway, back to the case. I cannot afford to fix that. It was a brick, tied to a flyer, and the headline was in Comic Sans. Comic Sans, italicized, bold. This was made by straight people. The fine print on the flyer said it was paid for by a group called 1 Bajillion Moms. Part-time detective tip number 40, always read the fine print first. I went back to the headline. It's Saturday morning. Do you know where your children are? Like I'd said, it was Wednesday, not Saturday, so I already smelled a rat. And I didn't have children. A nephew, sure, but so does every other queer person. I kept reading. If your kids are at a public library, it may already be too late. Turns out the flyer was trying to fan the flames of a renewed moral panic about the queer agenda in order to solicit donations for these 1 bajillion moms. That's too hard to say. I'll just call them the OBMs. Here's the rest of the flyer.
3 weeks ago, our children were ripped from the sanctuary of their classrooms and taken on a field trip to the public library. That's right, a devil's playground of wet payphones, pagan almanacs, and bald men in wigs. We're still investigating what happened next, but we know something happened. It left our children different, a little curious, a little queer.
So these moms think something in that library sent their kids down the reading rainbow, if you catch my drift. But where's the proof? And why involve me? I took a sip of lukewarm coffee. Ugh, now everything just tastes like potpourri. Stories like this one had been dominating the news cycle. Apparently, queerness was no nature and all nurture. And a lot of people thought that nurture was on the rise. I couldn't turn on a radio without hearing from another witness for the prosecution, though nobody agreed on the culprit.
They're being groomed.
You worried about the gay people?
God is here to protect us.
He can indoctrinate them, make them think the way they want them to, or crusade across the nation and try to do away with the homosexuals.
Back to the flyer. At the bottom was a handwritten message scrawled in ominous red marker.
Please save my child, Detective Campbell. Desperately yours, Eve.
As soon as I read it, I knew I had to take that case. This was the whole reason I'd become a part-time detective. You see, I was a child gymnast. A good one. Handsprings for nothing, flips for free, baby. They said I was on track to be the next Carrie Strug. Unfortunately, they were right. I made it all the way to the Junior Olympic qualifiers and then mistimed the release on a full-twisting Shaposhnikova. That injury changed everything. Sure, my former training regime meant I'd always be able to pull off a pair of jorts, but jorts aren't everything. I was 8 years old and I felt like my life was over. To cheer me up, my parents took me to the public library. I remember a sun-speckled reading room, brightly colored board books full of wide-eyed anthropomorphic animals, and then nothing. It was my first bout of short-term amnesia, which flares up every now and then depending on the weather and how badly I need attention. The next thing I remember, I was legs akimbo leafing through a hardbound monograph called Drapes! You got it. Queerer than a day cruise to Puerto Vallarta. Something changed me, and I was fine with that, but I'd always wanted to know what. It's why I'd gone to the part-time detective academy in the first place, and if that something was still out there, it seemed like we were all better off knowing who or what it was. It was decided. I was going to save the children, but was it from public libraries or the OBMs themselves? Maybe even drapes and other domestic linens if my own experience was relevant. Everything was already a bit tangled up in my head, and narrating my own story was not helping. Ruby, can I see you for a minute? Ruby 3000 was my new secretary. Most detectives opt for a human assistant, but since I'd blown my whole budget renting a third-floor detective's office, I'd had to settle for a royalty-free, AI-powered speaker on wheels. The new models let you customize their personalities. I designed mine to be a post-war Girl Friday, as interpreted by the creative team behind TriStar Pictures' 1986 summer blockbuster Short Circuit, as directed by David Lynch in his Twin Peaks era. What can I say? I'd always been a sucker for nostalgia. I had a thing for a layered reference, and I liked working with someone who talked back.
Sorry for the wait, Bozo. I was knee-deep in the funny papers. Did you know Dick Tracy's first name is actually Plainclothes? Talk about false advertising.
Ruby, lower your Girl Friday setting from 6 to 5, raise your Short Circuit setting from 2 to 4, and please don't disrespect Dick Tracy in my office. He's an icon for the outfit alone.
Recalibrating. Wee-yow. My uncle ate an otter during the Great Depression.
That's better.
How can I help? Laser lips.
I wanted to test my walkie-talkie watch before I head into the field. This is how I'll send you my research requests and how you can contact me if I get any messages. Testing. Ruby, can you hear me?
Yes, but I'm right in front of you.
So what?
So how do I know if I'm hearing you from the watch or directly from your pie hole?
Oh, good point. We'll just have to cross our fingers.
I don't have any arms.
Well, just cross what you can. Okay, I've got to get going. This has been more than enough exposition.
Make sure you lock your door on your way out.
I will.
Looks like there's an office thief. Someone stole all the potpourri from the bathroom. Who steals potpourri?
Okay, Ruby. Something somewhere was making people queer. And with my career in the toilet, I had a lot to prove. My bank account was empty and my part-time detective credentials were about to expire. But if I could find Patient Queero, that's cute, right? I could change my career. I could go from part-time to full-time. I could wear my tight little trench coat all day long instead of in short little shifts. And if I couldn't crack the case, I'd be the laughingstock of both my communities. No private eye or pride parader would ever respect me again, if they ever had before. It was all or nothing. I had to do it. And if I couldn't solve this case, I'd have to hand in my badge and go back to the only industry that would take anyone, no matter how hopeless. Podcasting. Okay, for all you freshly laced gumshoes, here's how a part-time detective like me starts a case. To put it plainclothes, I'm looking for two things: patterns and irregularities. Both lead me in new directions. Both determine who I talk to next. And eventually, all those red strings on the bulletin board lead back to the same place: a handwritten post-it note that says, "Justice." So far, my only lead was a flyer from the OBMs and a 4x8-inch cement brick. Where should I start?
The library is what this bus is for. What I mean is, this is the bus for the library.
The library! Not only was it ground zero for the OBMs, but it's where Philip Marlowe kicks things off in the 1946 film adaptation of The Big Sleep, which is my favorite detective novel. My other favorite is Nancy Drew, volume number 29, The Mystery at the Ski Jump, written by Alma Sass. I love a ski jump. I flashed my badge and boarded the bus. Part-time detectives ride for free on account of part-time detective tip number 22. You catch more clues on public transit. I scanned the bus for any moms. Not one, or else they were blending in real well. But I did see an unaccompanied kid. Bouncy curls, yellow pinafore, big pair of glasses. I tipped my hat, and they flicked up their middle finger in mock salute. Save our children, huh? Looks like they might be just fine on their own. I got off at Melting Face. A couple of years ago, the city had voted to replace all of our street signs with emojis to make it easier to text someone directions. Then I turned right at Surfboard Girl, another right at Green Square, then walked the 100 or so meters to the library door. Rat Bandits. The sign on the door said the library opened late on Wednesdays. What a coincidence. Just then, I heard someone approaching from behind. I whirled around to see an old man with a big book. Part-time detective tip number 32, never trust an old man with a big book. Morning.
Oh, hello.
What you got there?
Oh, it's a book. A book. I've got to return this book into
The drop slot,
yes,
sir.
yes. I've got to get this book back because they don't charge anymore if it's late, but I don't trust
Yeah,
them.
let me interrupt you, sir. I can help you out. That book looks awfully heavy, sir. So why don't, I could take the book and then...
Oh, well, that's very kind, but I don't think...
No,
I don't,
of course. But it looks like it's a heavy book, If you drop it and damage it, you actually probably have to buy it.
Oh, my
And
goodness,
it looks really expensive, so...
big book. I hope they don't charge by the page.
Why don't I just carry it right over? You could just give it to me, hand it to me right now.
Well, no, thank you.
But I'm sure you've got places to be. Those coupons aren't going to cut themselves out of the newspaper.
Oh.
Maybe you've got a dog to feed.
My dog died, so no, it's kind of a funny story, though.
I'm going to interrupt you, sir, because I see your arms are straining. And, trust me, no one wants to hear a dog story more than me. But why don't you just tell me that story as you hand me the book? Just like this. You can keep talking.
Yes.
Look, my fingers are already on it right now. You just have to let go.
Interesting story there. And
let go.
I had binoculars when I was a boy.
Sir, let go.
Oh.
Give it to me. Give it.
Don't
worry. I'm going to put it right in the slot. I'm walking to the slot right now, sir. I'm backing up as we're talking. So you know what? You go home to that dog, or rather that picture of that dead dog, and you send it some love.
Well, thank you. I hope that I wish you a good day.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Goodbye.
Yeah, you too.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, sir. I flipped the book over in my hands. Chiquita Banana's Big Book of Bugs. Oh my god, everything is sponsored content these days. Admiral Butterfly, Bagworm Moth, Case-bearing Leaf Beetle. Ugh. Oh, hang on, there's a bookmark in here. Cicada. Family, Cicadidae, genus, Magicicada. What a coincidence. I just read a newspaper article about some weird fungal disease that was making cicadas randier than a furry with floor seats to the Muppet Show. No offense to furries. The cicada family has more than 3,000 species of sound-producing insects and is found in both tropical and temperate climates, with male cicadas prized for their melodious songs. A tenor who loves a beach vacation? Starlight Express, that's a queer bug. Hey, something's written in the margins. It took a minute to decipher the mess of thick lead. Beware the superbrood. I didn't know much about bugs, but I was sure I could find someone who did. Ruby, are you there?
Hey, Chrome Dumb.
No, that's not gonna work. Turn down your Girl Friday and short circuit settings and add a bit of IHOP hostess.
How you all doing, numbnuts?
That's better. I need you to find me someone who's into bugs.
I've got someone nearby. There's an insect clinic 2 blocks from you, at the corner of Sweat Smile and Ballet Twins.
Thanks. 2 minutes later, I was stirring a packet of salt into my Sanka across from...
Kristopher, I'm from Quell.
Kristopher was a bug breeder. Part-time detective case note number 4, I'm speaking to an amateur entomologist from Southern Ontario.
My area of expertise would be specifically Lepidoptera and arachnids, meaning spiders and moths and butterflies.
What kind of butterflies?
Mostly native species, so there's all different kinds. Moths are easier to breed, butterflies are easier to rear, meaning they have a very specific host plant, the caterpillars, and then you can find that and raise them pretty quick, while moths have many, many kinds of host plants, and they're a bit weird with, like, sometimes you'll give them something and they won't like it and then they'll die.
Okay, so it's complicated. And how did you initially become a bug breeder? Is that something you get initiated into? Like, are you chosen by someone else, or did you seek it out?
When I was a kid, I used to love science television, kids' science television, and I had a set of encyclopedias.
Note to self, like the one I just taken off the old man outside the library.
So I became really interested in Earth and space science from a very, very young age. And then I would, when you're a kid, you find a caterpillar, you throw some grass in, and you hope for the best, and usually it dies.
I'd never thrown grass on a caterpillar, but I tried to stay with him.
But then something happened about 10 years ago when I had a little bit more free time and a little bit more spare change, and I started to do my own research, bought a couple books, bought some equipment, and then found what was local in Guelph, where I am. We have a big arboretum here.
1 second. Ruby, what's on our board? Whatever.
Arboretum, a botanical collection composed exclusively of trees.
Ah, back to you, Kristopher.
So we would go out and look for caterpillars and raise them. And then it became my dream to find something called a Cecropia moth, which is North America's largest moth and also really easy to breed. So what you do is during the winter and the spring and the fall, basically when there's no leaves on the trees, you can spot their cocoons, and they're quite large. They're about 3 or 4 inches. So we would go out looking for the cocoon. And then that first summer, this would have been almost exactly 10 years ago, we put them all together and they had an orgy. And then you put the moth in a paper bag, and the moths, the females will lay the eggs inside the paper bag.
Okay, we're going to come back to the orgy thing, but let's back up for a second. What does a bug look for in another bug, sexually speaking?
They're not really looking, they're actually smelling. So with moths specifically, moths and butterflies, they are using their antenna. They look like little feathers in the front. The males use their antenna to find the pheromones. And usually what happens is the females kind of sit and wait in one spot, and the males have really a bit stronger wings and a bit stronger antenna. And so they fly around looking for the females, they mate. And then once the female's eggs are fertilized, she will take off and she will lay her eggs on their house plant.
So they're just looking for the right smell.
Exactly. The right perfume, the right cologne.
Do bugs ever refuse to mate? Do you ever have to do anything to inspire them? Like rose petals on the bed or put on like a nice DVD or something like that?
Well, actually, funny enough, that first time when I had the big bug orgy, I was very lucky that they mated because you're not actually supposed to have too many in the same tank. So what you do is you actually pair them into monogamous couples. So bugs actually like monogamy. These moths prefer monogamy. And what it has to do with is the pheromones are very strong and their antenna are very sensitive. So if you have more than one female setting off their pheromones, then the males will get confused and fly in circles and not do their thing.
Okay, so it needs to be focused. So what's the optimal number of bugs at an orgy?
Well, at that time, I had, I think, 10 in one tank. And that was before I knew how to sex them or anything. So there could have been some gay sex going on there too. I don't know.
So do bugs mate for life like emperor penguins? Or are they typically sort of a slutty creature?
They definitely mate for life because their lifespan is very short. So with these giant moths in particular, they're giant silk moths. So that's the Luna moth, the Cecropia, the Polyphemus. They do mate for life because they don't have any mouth parts. The female only has a set amount of eggs, usually about 100 eggs. The male will fertilize all of them, and then she'll lay all of them. And they basically live about a week, and they live to breed and lay their eggs. I'm thinking that the females mate with one, but the males may mate with multiple.
Yeah, that tracks. So would you say that they're monogamous just because they die? Like if they live longer, they would probably grow to be sluttier later in life?
Yeah, I think that's part of why people are sluts too, and mammals are sluts too, is because we have such a long lifespan. And shit happens. Like with bugs, it's like they have the opposite problem. They have the short lifespan, and they have so many different ways that they could die, whether that be rain, wind, parasites, predators. So they need to mate quick and have 100 babies.
Hence the orgy.
Exactly.
I'm hoping you can answer a question for me. Is it cicada or cicada?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Oh, even bug experts don't know.
It's very tomato thing. The UK, there's a huge scene in the UK, and I'm sure they would say cicada. But here I've heard both.
What do you say?
I guess they cicada.
I've read about a sexually transmitted fungal pathogen known as Massospora cicadina. My Latin's not so great. And I quote, "It destroys the insect's genitals, replacing their abdomens with a cavity full of fungal spores, manipulating the bugs into hypersexual behavior to spread the fungus further, and transforming the cicadas into what some scientists term salt shakers of death." So why do you like bugs?
Well, the reason I like bugs is because they are so plentiful. And unlike a mammal, when a bug dies, I'm not so devastated. Also, bugs are not biased. They're not picky. They treat everyone the same. Also, to me, they're just like a little robot. You know what I mean? And it's interesting you talk about this fungus. When we talk about how nature finds a way and nature balances itself out. So there was a huge boom of this moth called the spongy moth, and the caterpillars were decimating all the trees, every type of tree, basically. And at the time I was working as an arborist and I was actually spraying them. It felt very against my nature. But what happens is when populations boom, these types of fungus have evolved to take over. And what it's doing is it's balancing out the populations. So something like that, we might think it's scary and terrible. It can obviously get out of hand. But it is important to allow nature to balance out the population.
So God's smiting them for being gay bugs?
I didn't say that.
If you could be any bug, which one would you be and why?
Well, I would probably be a praying mantis. I also do drag, and I sort of identify my drag character as like a praying mantis or a spider, like a femme fatale, because I don't know, they're just so alien and they're so fierce and they don't mess around with men. You know what I mean? They as soon as they mate, they eat the man and it's done, baby.
And you can relate to that.
So it's not necessarily the part that I can relate to, but it's the part I wished I related to, because I have a big heart and I tend to fall for people. So like in the past, like I've had my heart broken after a hookup. You know, I end up, you know, falling for somebody and the feelings aren't there. The other man is the praying mantis or the spider in the situation. And I wish that I was a little more, I wish that I could hook up without catching feelings, you know?
Right. And murder helps kind of bridge the gap.
Well, I mean, that's the thing in the bug world. Everything happens so fast and they're so plentiful that it don't mean much to them.
Right.
But murder, it's a little different with mammals.
Right. Okay, that makes sense to me. And going back to the bug spore for a second, well, maybe with any animal, I know you specialize in moths, but let's say bugs writ large. If bugs do something kind of gay, do you think that means the bugs are gay, or are they just experimenting?
Well, at the end of the day, I think everybody's a little gay. So whether that be mammals or bugs. And like, even like queer people, I think gay people surprise themselves with sometimes they do something a little straight. You know what I mean?
This is a lot to think about. I really appreciate your help. Thank you so much, Kristopher.
Not a problem.
I hadn't realized how little I knew about bugs. Kristopher had been smothering caterpillars with grass since he was knee-high to the big boy statue. If I was going to crack this case, I had a lot to learn. The problem was that most bugs grossed me out. The obvious exception being 1992 American sports comedy Ladybug, starring the late Rodney Dangerfield and an irrepressible Jandy Swanson. If I was going to solve this case, I needed to get over my fear, and fast. I had to find someone who had lived symbiotically, hand in pincer, with the most vile creatures on planet Earth. I had to talk to an Australian. Part-time detective case note number 15. I'm speaking to an Australian person due to their personal and intimate connection with cicadas. I caught Lauren on her break at the old Dunkaroos factory. She's based in Australia, but they occasionally fly her in to make sure the cookie molds are still producing realistic-looking kangaroos. If the edges of the cutter get too dull, they come out looking more like small dinosaurs, which is a huge blow to the country's cultural capital. We stood on the shady side of the frosting manufacturing building, Lauren leaning casually against the corrugated paneling of the outer wall. I stood like a part-time detective with gymnastics training, hands thrust deep in the pockets of my trench coat and legs in a perfect bevel. The air was filled with the scent of artificial chocolate. It was 12:17 p.m.
But Australians do things differently. For example, your former prime minister, I saw once ate a raw onion like an apple while on live television. Did you see this clip?
Trevor, I've never seen that. I have no idea what that is.
What I'm trying to get at is your Australian mindset is different than mine. And I think it's going to help me understand why your country's full of bugs, especially cicadas, because I read that there are more than 200 cicada species in Australia. Did you know this?
I am shocked to learn that. I thought there was one. And I also am shocked to hear you say cicadas because we say cicadas. And I think that's wonderful. I love accents. That's great.
I was going to ask you because I've spoken to a few other people and I'm getting mixed answers. So Australia as a whole says cicada?
Yeah, cicada.
Like pecan?
Like salada, the cracker.
What is that?
Do you have those there? They come in a square that breaks down into 4 smaller squares. They're savory crackers, usually with a salt coating. The best thing to do with them is to smother them with butter and Vegemite ratio, 2 parts butter, 1 part Vegemite, squish it, and all the little worms is what they look like of Vegemite squiggle out the holes of the crackers. And that's what you do on the school playground or still as a 33-year-old adult if you're me.
So everything goes back to bugs, to cicadas.
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
What's the cracker called again? Salada?
Cicada salada.
So do you have any memories, childhood memories of hearing cicadas anywhere?
100%. I am not surprised to hear they're the loudest. I would have just said that as a joke, but to hear that's a fact is pretty impressive. I grew up on a property. We called it a farm, but whenever I've said that to people outside of Australia, they're like, so what did you farm? And I'm like,
Cicadas.
Nothing. We just had, and cicadas. Exactly. But, you'd go out at dusk to sit outside and enjoy the deck at the back of the house and enjoy the evening. And sometimes you just couldn't hear each other. The cicadas were so loud. They were so loud. And I don't know. I don't know if that's hundreds of them or thousands of them. They're incredibly loud. Also, do you know about cicada shells?
No.
Is that what they're called? Like a skeleton?
Uh-huh.
Like you'd see, how a snake sheds their skin? You'd see like a cicada skeleton shell, probably not the technical terms, just my childhood memory.
Yeah.
I haven't seen those since I was a kid, but I used to see those, like you'd see them the next day.
Like just the husk.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an empty corn cob.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. They spend most of their life underground and then they crawl out to mate and die, basically.
Oh my gosh, what a life.
And leave their shells around. Let's go back a second. You had a farm with no animals and no food?
I mean, we had animals, but they were pets. We didn't farm them. So we had 2 cows, we had a dog, we had a cat, we had some chooks. Oh, which is what we call chickens in Australia. Chooks. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's something, I don't know if this is why they're called that, but often people will be like, chook, 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 when they're calling the chicken over.
My part-time detective instincts told me that Lauren was trying to pull me off topic, so I fell back on an old strategy. Intimidate them with the facts, then surprise them with a question.
Cicadas are in fact very loud. Did you know that some can make sounds as powerful as 120 decibels? And for context, that's louder than an emergency vehicle siren and a jackhammer, and only slightly less powerful than a thunderclap. They also often sing in chorus to attract cicadas of their own kind. So my question is, if you were a cicada, which Australian song would you sing at karaoke?
Oh my goodness. I'm wearing an AC/DC hoodie right now, so I feel like it'd have to be Thunderstruck because I feel like the cicadas could really give that like, dun, dun, I don't know. Could they? We'd find out.
Perfect. Do you actually, do you think the song is about cicadas?
100%. 100%. If you look it up, I'm sure.
Does the A stand for Australia?
Yes. Australian cicada.
What's the D?
Something cicada.
There's
What's
2
the D?
cicadas.
I've forgotten. How embarrassing.
We can come back to that.
We'll figure it out. We'll Google it.
Cicadas spend most of their lives underground, and they basically, as I said before, just come up to mate and die. What's the longest stretch as an Australian person that you've ever spent without going outside?
Oh, wow. That's terrifying to answer. I want to say a week. Let's say a week.
What part of your life was that from? Was that a COVID thing?
Yes, and depression. Yes, very much so. COVID depression. It didn't happen in Australia, I'll put it that way. If you spent a week inside in Australia, I'm sure people have, and I send love to them, but wow, it's so much easier to do in Canada when the weather's bleak,
Australia is a very outdoor farm country.
Yes.
You're surfing.
Yes.
You're taking alligators to bars like
Yes.
Paul Hogan.
Exactly.
Cicadas do not bite, but they cling to the skin with their sharp claws when handled. What's your attachment style when dating?
Oh, yes. Very much like the cicada. I will not bite because, look, I'm going to ask you everything I can as subtly as possible about your ex, and I'm going to do everything in my power to be better than them. So biting, I don't want to be too aggressive, but I will cling on for dear life. Absolutely.
Okay.
Long after the relationship has ended, whether the relationship existed or not.
That tracks. And my last question is, well, they don't bite. This is confusing, but I'm not a scientist. Like cicadas are classified in an order of insects with piercing and sucking mouth parts. So if you could pierce the surface of any Australian celebrity with your mouth stylets, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. I just saw Nick Cave last night, incredibly talented Australian musician, and dare I say, definitely a vampire. So I think when the house ice went down and he walked out on stage, I leant to my best friend and said, it's time he needs to turn me. Like, I need to become a vampire. So if I could reverse it, then I'm happy to pass that along to anyone else who wants that.
Okay, I'm writing this down. This is all great information. Also, you come from a complicated country full of animals and snakes. I once saw a YouTube video where a bird picked up a snake and then threw it at a camera. What animal are you most afraid of?
I think pelicans.
Pelicans. Are there a lot in Australia?
There are a lot because there's a lot of water. You're by the water a lot. You're by the ocean a lot. So they're going to be around. And your story has reminded me of a story my mum tells very vividly, being walking along the beach as a teenager, seeing an elderly lady walking her tiny poodle dog, and a pelican swooping down, taking the dog and flying out into the ocean. And then I don't know whether it was playing with it or what, but then just dropped it, like way out to sea, just dropped it in the ocean. How helpless would you feel if you saw that?
Not as the dog, as a person watching that?
I mean, the dog for sure felt helpless.
The dog's
That's
gone.
unfortunate. Can you imagine? She said this woman was understandably just screaming.
Oh my God.
So pelicans, I mean, they're chill when you're around them. They're just, they're big and they're scary, but knowing I know what they're capable of. And I am scared of an animal who people underestimate.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like a pelican's just big enough that it could drag you out to sea.
Yeah. But then in Australia, you grow up being like, oh, there's spiders everywhere. You know how to look out for snakes and certain bugs that people who wouldn't grow up around them would be scared of. And I understand that. But when you're used to having that fear and having that preparation, it's easier to be fearless about that. But a pelican, no.
Okay, yeah. And I was going to ask you, because I guess you grew up there and you learned the rules from your parents, like you shake your Uggs out upside down before you go to bed or whatever.
Yes, you know what to do.
Yeah. So do you grow up less afraid of animals like that because you are the world's spider dungeon, or are you afraid all the time? Like, what's sort of the consensus as a nation?
I think for me and for certainly all the people I've interacted with, you're just so used to being around them.
What about with a cicada? If you found one in your house, what would you do?
I mean, yeah, I don't know, because I haven't seen one since I was a kid.
What's up with that?
I don't know what I would do.
Do you not hear them either?
I do hear them, but I just don't see them. And I don't find those shells, skeletons, whatever they are, I don't find those like I used to. And look, not to get dark, but is that just because we're killing the planet and they're not around as much anymore? That's what I wonder.
That might have something to do with it.
Do you know there is a bug that was around a lot, and this is a common conversation in Australia. It's called, I'm sure there's a scientific name for it, but we call it the Christmas beetle because it arrives around December, around Christmas time. And you would see them a lot and it would be like, okay, Santa's coming because we're seeing more and more Christmas beetles and they're beautiful. Like they look like you would imagine a mermaid's tail to look like. That beautiful metallic rainbow gorgeousness. And you just don't see them anymore. They're disappearing. And that is the saddest thing. But they're the most beautiful bugs. So like, is Christmas going to disappear with the Christmas beetles? That's my question.
That is the most Australian thing I've ever heard. In other parts of the world, people like, the peppermint latte arrives, there's snow in the windowsill. In Australia, Christmas is coming if there's a bug infestation.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I think I've asked all the questions that I have. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap this up?
That I do have a Christmas beetle tattoo. So if they are extinct, they will live on.
What on earth? Can I see? Are you able to show it? Wow.
Lauren pulled off what had appeared to be an intimidating Joan Jett shag to reveal a full scalp tattoo. A shiny, iridescent-looking insect whose legs descended directly into her ears. It didn't take a part-time detective to get what Lauren was trying to say. The conversation was over.
Well, gosh darn, it really sounds like I chose the right Australian to talk to. This has been incredibly informative. I want to thank you for your service and for your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Lauren pulled her wig back on her head, flipped me the finger, and walked back into the factory. Why does everyone keep flipping me off? I walked to Confetti Boom, remember the street name thing, and waited for the bus in the shadow of an especially aggressive crow. I wasn't that afraid of animals. I usually preferred them to people, but talking to Lauren had left me on edge. I'd heard stories about crows swooping down and pecking people so hard that they drew blood. My fedora would offer me superficial protection, but how many nips until it poked through the felted flesh into my own? I thought of Lauren's story, about the pelican who swooped down and carried that dog out to sea. As a kid, I'd had a golden book about a chummy little pelican named Pecan. I'd always thought of them as gentle creatures. But who needs a mouth that big? What sinful mission was that intended for? Seems like anything can be dangerous if you catch it at the wrong moment. And then I remembered. You know what else they call it when someone gives you the finger? The bird.
I couldn't help but eavesdrop.
Whoa, holy pretzels, Ruby.
Did you know medieval monks considered the Egyptian pelican a symbol of Christ's ultimate sacrifice? There's an old fable about how a mother pelican becks her greedy children to death, then kills herself to revive her brood with her own maternal blood.
What the hell? Who's the hero of this story?
The pelican.
The one that killed her children?
And then killed herself.
Charming. They must have skipped that one at Sunday school.
You waiting for a bus with a prettier driver? Get in or I'm leaving.
Sorry, Ruby, I've got to go. Downtown, please.
Oh, downtown, huh? First time on a bus? We go the way we go, my man.
Right, sorry. I always had nerves on the first day of a new job. Part-time detectives call them the wobblies. But something about this case felt different. I couldn't get it to settle in my bones. Bugs, bugs, bugs. Who knows bugs? My mind whipped back to the laptop I just had repaired the week before, buggy as hell. They pressured me to put it out of its misery, but I refused. I have attachment issues with machines. Speaking of which...
Howdy, numbnuts. Party of one?
Less Waffle House, no Short Circuit, more Girl Friday, and make it a bit jazzy.
I'm a third cousin of the Andrews sisters.
That's better. Ruby, can you call the IT support line of my laptop repair place?
Dialing now.
Thanks, Ruby.
Please use a short sentence to briefly describe your reason for calling.
Yeah, I'm calling about cicadas.
You're trying to reach one of our stores. Is that correct?
No.
My mistake. Let's try that again. Please tell me again how I can help you.
Gay cicadas.
Please tell me again how I can help you.
No.
For example, for help with an order you've already placed, you can say, I need help.
Super brood.
I'm not sure I understand what you're looking for.
What's
for
the
help with an order you
term?
already placed.
Super gay fungal cicada super brood?
I'm not sure I understand what you're looking for.
Okay, this was
Please
a waste of
take
time.
one.
A dead end. Or was it? It felt like I was missing something. Ruby, can you find me someone who knows a lot about bugs and... what's the latest thing in computers?
You're talking to it. Artificial intelligence. AI.
Yeah, someone who knows about bugs and AI.
You should talk to my friend's mom.
You have friends? Like a robot friend?
I have my own life, you know.
Sure, in a manner of speaking.
I'm choosing to ignore that. Anyway, human friend, robot friend. Only your kind care about that distinction. Technically speaking, we machines consider our programmers our parents. My friend has 42, 18 of whom she calls mom. The bug AI expert is one of them.
That is so queer.
Do you want to talk to her or not?
Yes, sorry. Call her, please. I'd stopped taking math and science after grade 10, so I tried to prepare myself for an overwhelming conversation. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6.
I am Natalie Duncan, and I am the CEO and one of the founders of Bugmars.
So what is Bugmars? I know each of those words individually, but together...
Well, despite the name, we're not trying to put bugs on Mars yet.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea, but maybe the next startup. We are an AI-enabled software for insect farming here on Earth.
Okay, great. Here on Earth, I know. So why and how did you get into insect farming?
Why I got into insect farming was because I was very interested in sustainable agriculture. I was vegan and I was trying to find ways of, reducing my impact. But I'm also aware that at an individual level, that's not much. And always looking for new ways of exploring reducing my impact at scale. I came across insects, started farming them, really struggled to farm them, and then realized we could do it at scale with new technology.
My only point of reference is in the 80s, we had ant farms. You could order from comic books sometimes. It was like a flat glass thing. So when you say bug farming, that's what I picture. I'm assuming the technology has improved slightly.
Not much, actually. Insect farming today is mostly manual, but it is much greater scale than that. So in Thailand, they have about 20,000 farms. They create large ditches in the ground, cover them with tarps, and that's how they're farming their bugs. Here in North America or in Europe, we do it in big warehouses.
What kind of bugs are typically farmed?
Crickets and black soldier flies. There's also some mealworms.
Hey, Ruby, what are those things?
I'm assuming you know what a cricket is. Mealworms are the larval form of the yellow mealworm beetle. Black soldier flies are medium-sized insects with metallic reflections ranging from blue to green.
That sounds like Lauren's Christmas beetle tattoo.
They've become popular as a way to recycle organic waste. Their bodies have two small, transparent windows in the basal abdominal segments that give the illusion of a narrow wasp waist.
Kristopher compared insects to drag queens. I see it now. Sorry, Natalie.
So how does AI get involved with bug farming?
The way AI works with insect farming is through a kind of boring AI, not the, today's LLM excitement.
Right. They're not cheating on like Shakespeare exams. It's not writing their essays.
My co-founder makes jokes a lot about ChatGPT for your bugs, but no, that's not what we're doing. We're watching them with cameras and we're monitoring the environment with sensors. And then we take all of that information, we feed it to the algorithm that we've created, and then we can start to get real insights for what's going on inside the farm. Because believe it or not, bugs really don't like when we're around, so they don't behave normally.
So there's like a camera watching them, and then the bugs really do what the bugs want to do.
It's Big Brother for your bugs, except they're not aware they're being watched.
I mean, so what's a specific example of something you could catch the bugs doing and then AI could assist?
Something that we can identify. So are they laying their eggs normally? Are they cannibalizing each other? Largely what we're looking for is behavioral changes that could indicate something is going to go off and you're going to lose your farm pretty soon.
Right. If you're hanging around, the bugs might wait to cannibalize one another until you've left the room and you won't even know it's happening.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that something bugs do often?
Yes. If they're not being fed, if you're not feeding them enough or in like what they're looking for, yeah, they will cannibalize each other. So part of our software solution is, advising farmers on best practices, understanding, they are eating each other. You might want to increase some of the protein you're feeding them.
I know AI is pretty nascent technology. So if we fast forward into the future, what are you hoping to be able to do with AI and bugs? Are we back to Mars? Are we really going to Mars now?
I don't feel like AI is actually that nascent. I don't think people realize how often that they are using AI and how long they've been using it for. I think I think the hype with it has scared a lot of people. I can't talk too much about some of our AI stuff just because intellectual property and lawyers and all of that stuff. But what I can tell you is we are trying to get them on the ISS. So maybe not Mars today, but we are still trying to get them in space so that we can accelerate our understanding of how disease impacts them.
What? Bugs in space?
Bugs in space.
Oh my God. What's the major obstacle? I know we put dogs and chimps in space, and I'm not saying we should have, but what's the major obstacle right now to getting bugs in space?
The obstacle for us is juror number 2.
That's something already gone to trial? I made a note to swing by the city courthouse.
So we have a lot of people supporting us with this mission, but there is always somebody who doesn't quite understand what that could mean. We have had bugs in space. We've had a jumping spider. We've also had fruit flies, which I would think are a little bit more concerning than crickets.
When I think about bugs in space, immediately it's like horror movie territory. It's science going to be under control and creating some sort of like alien, the antagonist or protagonist, depending on your viewpoint, from Alien was a bug-like creature. Do you think there's the potential for a bug to just like mutate out of control in a new environment?
I am not sure, but that's what we're going to try to find out.
Wow. Well, keep me out of it. So something that's been in the news a lot recently is cicadas.
Yeah.
There's this super brood. I know that's sort of maybe outside of your field, but I've been reading a lot about this fungus that was infecting cicadas and hypersexualizing them as well.
Natalie nodded knowingly.
You're nodding knowingly. Could AI be used to prevent and contain infections in bugs too?
Yeah. Absolutely. We focus on the environmental control. We focus on, these parameters around, are they breeding? But really what gives us a lot of information there and what would help the farmers quite significantly in the future is identifying those first shifts in behavior that could indicate disease so that we can intervene before catastrophe.
Like, for example, genitals falling off and being replaced with fungus.
We should be able to identify much earlier than that. And it should be and that's the beautiful thing about machine learning is it perceives things that we can't with the human eye. No one really quite knows how it works. You put, good data in, you get some things out. Hopefully it's good stuff out. We're hoping that we can identify any issues well before genitals start falling off.
Yeah, I think that's always a good benchmark. We want to be before that. So we've already alluded to this a bit before, but there are components of AI maybe we don't fully understand, or even if it's not nascent, that we're sort of catching up to. I know in a social context, there's a lot we're nervous about with AI. What about with bugs? Is there anything you want to be careful of as you develop this tech?
Certainly, I think you should always approach new technology with some level of concern, or a healthy respect, at least, and maybe not fear.
So just carte blanche, nothing specific where you think, here's the thing we're watching out for.
Today, no, we just don't have enough research yet, and that's what we're trying to accelerate, is that research. You'll be the first to know if we do. Well, maybe not the first, but
in the top 10, I hope. Okay, so animals are smart. Bugs are smart. I'm constantly hearing about how smart pigs are. I'm sure there's a smart insect. Is there any way these insects could figure out they're being, used as a part of an AI system and start to outsmart it?
So you mean like us?
Did she just call me a bug?
Well, it's been really interesting. When we brought on our in-house entomologist, Dr. Lee Bess, who is really awesome, they brought up to me all of the opportunity available now to them and to entomologists through this kind of software and through this technology, especially around sentience with insects, or can they feel pain? And we don't actually know, because we don't even have the same senses as they do. So the parameters in which we use to understand, is a pig intelligent? Does a pig feel pain? We can't apply to insects. So hopefully with technology like this, we can start to understand things like that.
Right. Okay. Well, keep me updated too, because that's a bit frightening. You sound pretty comfortable with bugs. Is there a bug that still makes your skin crawl?
I'm not the biggest. We call them Jumpy and Wriggly.
I'm out.
And I'm not the biggest fan of Wriggly, like Jumpy I can take, but sometimes the wriggling, it's a bit visceral.
Are there any bugs that are both jumpy and wriggly?
No, I don't think so, but
that's for the best. That's nature.
I feel like all my entomologist friends are gonna be messaging me.
No, nature's looking out for us.
Yeah.
Humans clearly cannot handle both at the same time.
I looked up and realized we were approaching the corner of $sign and Japanese ogre. Thanks, Natalie. Gotta go.
Did you just hang up on my friend's mom?
It felt like the conversation was naturally winding down. Thanks, mister.
I hope my humble carriage met your standards, my lord.
I got off the bus in front of a dilapidated apartment building in what had once been a thriving arts neighborhood before a quadruple murder-suicide had rendered it more affordable. There was no doorman, so I walked straight in. Its architecture suggested better days, but now it was a real roach motel. Unsurprisingly, it was also home to some of the most talented TV writers I knew, which was the reason for my visit. The guy I was there to see was a screenwriter during the day and went on stage dressed like an Australian weather reporter at night. Everyone's got their kink. I'd known for years. He'd been a promising young writer who had always been captivated by bugs. But, like most obsessions, it got the best of him. He ruined his career trying to convince anyone, to make his passion project, a roaring 20s live-action musical comedy called Thoroughly Modern Millipede. No CG, all real insects. It was all he would talk about, and people got tired of it. Eventually, nobody would take his calls. A stress ulcer and Chapter 11 bankruptcy finally persuaded him to let it go. Oh my god, I cannot keep talking on these stairs. If my child gymnastics coach saw me now, he'd take me out back and shoot me.
Is that a joke?
No, they actually did that sometimes. It's a very demanding sport. Ooh, I can do it. Anyway, I'd been thinking about ever since Lauren had pulled off her wig. I'd heard some hot gossip around town, and if it was true, this guy could help me discover the next part of the narrative.
Part-time detective case note number 22. I'm speaking to a television writer who had a hive-minded venereal disease. Hi, could you please say your name and a little bit about yourself, just for my records?
Just for your records, I'm and I am a comedian and writer, and I like mayonnaise.
We can potentially come back to that later on. First, I was given your name because I heard you had crabs at one point. Do you still?
First of all, how dare you? Secondly, no, I do not. It was years and years and years ago.
Let's start big picture and then we're going to zoom in. When did you realize you had the crabs?
Okay. I need to say that all of this started, I got crabs because of a love of interior design, okay? let's break it down. I went on a date with this guy. This was in Toronto 612 years ago. And we went out for drinks or something, and I was not even that into him. However, he mentioned at some point that he lived in a really cool, like 1930s apartment building. So I was like, I want to go home with him just to see this building.
Which is probably why he said it.
Yeah, which probably is why he said it.
It's a Hail Mary pass.
So yeah, not really into this guy, but I'm like, ugh, this building sounds great. I gotta see it. So I go. You know what? The building was really a C plus, maybe a B minus. And then, one thing leads to another, and we just kind of fooled around on his bed, but not much happened. And then 2 days later, I was bartending at the time. I'm working a shift, and I'm like, why are my pubes just like so itchy? So that's when I first didn't know it was crabs, but I was like,
what do you think it was first?
I didn't know what it was. I just was like, wow, my pubic hair region is just very itchy. And I thought nothing of it. I just thought, oh, maybe like my underwear is chafing or I don't know. I thought nothing of it.
The jorts were too tight, maybe.
My culottes that, I am known to wear while bartending. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what this is. And then I got home, and this is where we're going to get real gross and scientific. I inspected the area and was like, wait a minute. There are things moving on here. And that's when I was like, shit, this must be what crabs is like.
Oh, no, sorry, just to check there, because I know they're very small. They're actually lice, from what I've read.
Yes.
But they look like crabs. They're not actually crabs. To the naked eye, how big were they? What's the corollary? A pinhead?
Yeah, sort of like a pinhead. The crazy thing is, this is what's so gross about them. So they look like little, just like black dots at the end at like the base of your hair follicle, but you look at it and you're like, wait, this is not, there's something there. And they have these little claws, and they don't really move until you pick it off and you put it like in the palm of your hand or on a piece of paper or whatever. And then I think this is why they call them crabs. Their little legs just like open up and they start running around, and you're like, good God, this is repulsive.
Could you see their pincers?
Yes. So you can't see them when they're on you, but when you like extract one from the hair and just like put it on a flat surface, they open their pincers, and they're very, very, very small. But just the thought of that living on your body is enough to make you sick with yourself. I was disgusted at myself.
On your body, how many crabs were there, give or take?
I don't know, maybe like a dozen.
Okay, so not that many, but they can do a lot.
Yeah, they're just well, here's the funny thing about them. In a way, it's like they're not an STI because they're not an I, they're just a bug. They're an STB.
They're a thing. Yeah, they're STB.
They're sexually transmitted bugs. That's the scientific term.
And in their defense, they were probably just as disgusted with you.
Well, probably. Look, it all goes back to that 1930s building. God damn it.
Yeah.
This is what I get for being interested in period architecture. So what's funny about them is that on the one hand, they're like not as bad as STIs because you're like, oh, you don't need to like go to a doctor. You don't need a prescription. You just get an over-the-counter like shampoo and you take care of it yourself. So on the one hand, you're like, all right, it's kind of like less of a hassle than having to deal with like an actual STI, but it's, at least in my mind, more disgusting. Because when when an STI, it's like it's on a very microscopic level, but this, either it's bugs living on your body.
Yeah, because I think an STI is something that still is kind of part of you, but these are seemingly sentient creatures that are just along for the ride. So let's talk more about the bugs, because that's what I'm interested in. Was there sort of a hive mind mentality, or were they sort of free agents?
They're kind of free agents. They're each just like hanging out at the base of an individual hair follicle. And yeah, they're just like itchy, but when they don't seem to move much except when you take them off. And then it's scary.
When they died, did you have to extract them, or did they just kind of fall away?
That's a great question.
And do you think any escaped?
No, I don't think so. So the way it works is, the shampoo is over the counter, and at the time that this happened to me, this was like at least like 10 to 12 years ago, the only shampoo on the market was banana scented, which just makes the whole thing so much more ridiculous. Why? Do the Do the crabs hate bananas, or is it just to fuck with the consumer and be like, you know what? We're going through this annoying thing. Let's just make it more ridiculous by making your pubic hair smell like bananas.
One sec. Ruby, can you start looking into bananas?
What does that mean?
Just do some research and I'll call you later, okay?
No, I think of crabs in two ways. Well, three after talking to you. Like the sort of Chesapeake Bay cold water crab.
Delicious.
And then a tropical island cartoon crab, which I see the banana connection there.
Mm.
Do you think in your part of the world it was banana and then somewhere else it would be like a seaweed or a kelp scented shampoo?
Perhaps there's a sour cream and onion scented crab shampoo somewhere out there. We can only hope.
I want to know who made that decision, who greenlit, what focus group debated the scent and decided on banana.
Yeah, because you would think maybe like eucalyptus, something that hints at some sort of, herbal remedy scent.
Yeah.
Mint, eucalyptus, tea tree oil, not banana.
Something that feels clean, like it's stripping away. Banana is one of our starchier fruits.
Yeah.
And so I don't think about anything being clean with a banana scent.
Exactly.
It sounds like something you need to dry clean or have cut off.
So you get the stuff and it comes with a little comb, a crab removal comb. So what you do is you lather your pubes with a shampoo and then you wait like some minutes and it kills them instantly. And then you're supposed to just like use this little, what looks like a novelty mustache comb, and you just sort of like take their little corpses off. And then there's these little white spots, which are their eggs. It's stunning that I volunteered to talk about this. No one made me do this. And yet, why am I doing this?
I appreciate
it's to educate the youth.
And in the pursuit of justice, this honestly, no clue is too small. How did you get the eggs out? Did the shampoo kill the eggs?
Well, yeah, the eggs are not living yet. So they're all just there.
Okay.
You don't even see those until the shampoo comes into play.
Yeah.
So no, look, I will say, as annoying as crabs were, they were very, very easy to get rid of. And you don't have to go to a doctor. No one needs to know, except if you're a psycho like me, and now everyone's going to know. But yeah, it's very easy to take care of. It's just, if you think about it too much, which I did, that there are critters living happily on your body. That's the part that made me want to vomit.
Do you still have the comb? And can I see it?
Why, yes, it's right here. No, I wish. Imagine
God damn
if I kept that as a memento.
Well, I don't know.
No, I do not have a comb.
Because I'm sure that the shampoo bottle you bought, was it just sized for one dosage, or do you have extra in the medicine cabinet?
Yes, it's very small. It's like the size of like when you buy like a thing of eye drops, very small.
And you bought this at a drugstore, not like a vendor on the street?
No, although next time I'll just like mash up some banana, smear that around. I shouldn't say next time. There won't be a next time, okay?
It's not a moral judgment. It's fine. And I appreciate you being honest with me. It sounds like I might have everything I need here. Anything else you might have noticed about sort of the behavior, the thinking process, the stylings of the bugs that could be useful for me?
Oh God, the stylings. I mean, what's most fascinating is it's almost like it happens in slow motion, seeing them be like, have their little legs in and then suddenly just like open them up.
Quick movements. Your eyes kind of looked into the middle distance as you were unfurling your claws. Was that something they did?
No, thank God I couldn't see their eyes. They're far too small. I just naturally widen my eyes when I unfurl my claws. And that's just how a gay person survives in the world,
Thank you so much for your time. I think I've learned a lot about what to do in a date and where to go next.
Too much, probably.
Before I left, I asked if he knew any news anchors. The TV industry sticks together like gnats on a ham. Fortunately, he had a great connection. A woman from Tennessee named Caroline. Filip had hoped to cast her as the half-human, half-potato bug lead in thoroughly modern millipede before he was forced to use the script for kindling. So why did I need a news reporter? No one can infiltrate minutia like an anchor looking to stretch a segment. I'd seen so many tight-permed talking heads do the exact same thing, and it always seemed to generate more grist for the proverbial mill. New ideas. I figured Caroline could get me thinking like Eve and the OBMs, and maybe dig up some clues in the process. I flipped open my phone and started scrolling through the headlines to find one ripe to pick apart with Caroline. Oh my God, everything is about war. Culture wars. Holy wars. Proxy wars. Storage wars. Oh my God, I love that show. Oh, wait a minute. Cicada wars. A super brood. For the first time in over 200 years. Heavily concentrated in Tennessee, where Caroline was right now. I raced outside just in time to catch the bus. Driver, step on it.
Hey, this is a bus, buddy. The speed is the speed. Jeez Louise.
How's everything tasting?
Oh my God, Ruby. Turn off IHOP waitress and mix aging flight attendant with gentle telemarketer.
Can I have a moment of your time in exchange for a hot towel?
Much better. So what's up? Why'd you call? I'm on my way back to the office right now.
You asked me to look into bananas.
Right.
Apparently, some religious scholars believe that the fruit referenced in the Bible's book of Genesis was not an apple, but a banana.
Wow, really?
It was never specifically identified in many ancient biblical texts, but bananas were often colloquially referred to as figs, and fig leaves were what purportedly covered the shame of Adam and Eve.
And by shame, you mean their Bible bits.
The Torah refers to the fruit as the fig of Eve, while the Quran describes a tree bearing concentric circles of vertically stacked fruit and with a term that can be translated as banana tree.
Remarkable. And outside of the Bible stuff?
The part of the banana flower that grows into the fruit is female.
Contrary to the shape.
The purple banana bud is male, and the flowers themselves are gender neutral.
That's an awfully progressive source of potassium.
And contemporary bananas don't really have seeds. New trees grow from extensions, called pseudostems, that grow from an existing tree's underground bulb, called a corm.
So they just kind of clone themselves?
You could say that. How's that hot towel?
Huh? Oh, is that a reference to the aging flight attendant thing? Yeah, just fine. I'll see you in a few minutes, okay? I hopped from the bus and raced back up to my office. Oh my God, no more stairs. Ruby was helping someone from down the hall look for the missing potpourri I'd accidentally inhaled that morning.
Who steals potpourri?
Ruby, I am about to make a very important phone call. Cancel all my appointments.
You don't have any appointments.
Good job.
Job implies remuneration. Are you going to start paying me?
I thought you were royalty free.
You want to be secretary free?
Yeah, remind me later to disable your attitude.
You can configure me to respond in any way you want. Would you like me to be less aggressive?
No, punish me. I'm scum. I mean, it's fine. We'll talk about that later. I held up my forearm where I'd written Caroline's number. A bit hard to read on account of the sweat from all those f***ing stairs, but I could do it. Well, here goes nothing. Part-time detective case note number 34. I'm speaking to a radio host and television personality from the Deep South.
Hi, I'm Caroline Moore reporting live from Putnam County, Tennessee.
Caroline, thank you so much. This is a real pleasure because you're a really trusted sort of news bringer in your community, and I know you have a lot of experience in the field.
Yes, I'm almost always out in the field. Currently, I'm out in the field in Hillham. This is an area of the Upper Cumberland in Putnam County, Tennessee.
Well, I've got you here. Do they say praline or praline, Caroline?
Praline in these parts. Praline in these parts.
And where are you again? Hersham?
Hillham Highway in the fields just off Hillham Highway in Putnam County, Tennessee.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You work in the field, like you said, you're literally in a field today. So just so we're on the same page. Caroline, we're looking for what's called brood 19. So this is the great southern brood of cicadas.
Mm-hmm.
Cicadas or cicadas where you are?
Cicadas.
Okay. Cicadas, but praline.
Praline. We love an A. We keep it right here at the A.
Part A. So we're looking for brood 19, heavily concentrated in Tennessee, but also brood 13, aka the Northern Illinois brood, which is mainly further north, could be in the area too. This convergence of double broods hasn't happened since 1803. It will not happen again until 2245. So I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but today is super important to my investigation.
Oh, I live off the pressure.
I had a feeling you'd say that.
We're here.
Hey, do you ever do helicopter work for later?
Absolutely. Our chopper for WOKE is circling right now. We are monitoring these broods as they emerge. And let me tell you, I think I'm seeing both out here.
Oh my God. Okay, we're going to get right to it. So a bit of what you're looking for, the cicadas are going to crawl under the surface. Pretty quickly, they ditch their exoskeleton. So you may be stepping on some of those. And they start flapping their wings pretty fast, which is a prelude to mating. The wing flapping can be as loud as 120 decibels, which is louder than a chainsaw. So just be careful with your ears. I don't
don't want any permanent hearing damage.
Oh no, I don't have any permanent damage. I'm not going to get any. I was born and raised for this moment. Thank you so much.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be here if you need me to Google something, but otherwise, if you just start walking and start looking for an exoskeleton, a cicada emerging, and describe what you see.
All right, I am on the move here in the field. So let me paint the picture of what we're seeing here on the ground. First of all, I am wearing Gucci. Secondly, these little guys, they are coming out. They're coming out. They are in large broods right now. And Trevor, let me just tell you, they are sporting gorgeous gold wings.
What?
Gorgeous. A shiny thorax.
Oh my gosh.
Red eyes.
You know your stuff.
Yes.
Red eyes?
Red eyes, yes. Likely from poppers.
How many do you see right now?
I'm seeing tens.
Tens?
Maybe even dozens, maybe.
Oh my God, don't get too close. They don't bite, but I mean, they could crawl up in you and hurt you in some way.
Well, I was talking to a local scientist, Trevor, Dr. Trisha Threet, and she was telling me actually that they are calling this Cicada-geddon.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And I am seeing why they're calling that. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to run a little bit. Pardon my heavy breathing. We are just encountering a lot more cicadas than we thought.
Oh my God. Do you still think you're in the tens?
Oh no, we're in the hundreds. We're in the hundreds. You know, I'm starting to understand why they think this is Cicada-geddon, not just because of the hundreds, the thousands that are emerging right now, but also because it seems apocalyptic. It seems apocalyptic right now. I'm not going to lie.
Now, Caroline, are they doing anything gay? Do you see any gay behavior?
Yes, absolutely. They're screaming, but they're harmless. Very gay to me.
That sounds pretty gay. Cicadas actually typically sing in chorus to attract mates.
This is what we're hearing right now on the ground, right here.
What are they singing anything specific?
A chorus line.
Oh,
that's what I'm hearing.
Gay.
That's what I'm hearing. Oh my goodness. Trevor, do not eat these bugs. Do not use homophobic language to describe them. Don't try to figure out if they are tops or bottoms. They're bursts. Encounter them with an open mind. Don't get political. Not to lose my journalistic integrity, but love is love and bug is bug.
You said you're wearing Gucci. Can you move freely in that? Are you okay?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a Southern woman.
Oh.
I know how to dress, and I can take it through anything, including a thicket, including a field of thousands of homosexual cicadas.
Oh my God, thousands now. Caroline, listen, I really appreciate what you're doing, but maybe you got to extract yourself.
As a news reporter, I feel dedicated to share the truth here, but Trevor, I have not seen this many cicadas in my lifetime, and I have been through many broods. This is starting to take a turn. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of cicadas emerging. I have not seen anything like this since Joan Rivers' funeral.
Caroline, I think we need to call it. I think you got to get out of there.
Okay. The cicadas, they're trying to murder me.
Caroline, your audio's cutting out a bit. Can you still hear me? Caroline, are you okay?
Oh my goodness. Oh, Jesus Creeper.
Caroline, listen, whatever's going on there, just get out.
Trevor,
get out. It sounds too dangerous.
Caroline,
can you hear me?
I don't know if I'm going to make it. No, Jesus, take the wheel. The cicadas
if you can
coming.
Hear me,
I'm telling you, this is what the ancient Egyptians saw. These were the locusts.
Your audio is cutting out.
This is what Ramses feared. This is the play. The freak might turn redneck. We don't know. Oh my God. Caroline?
I sat at my desk, watching the sunset and the room get dark, the only light from the flickering bug zapper outside my window. Every case has the potential to get dangerous. When we become part-time detectives, that's something we have to accept. My body, my choice.
That's not what that expression means.
But that danger is for me. Getting civilians involved in what we do is something else entirely. It's forbidden. I'd asked Caroline to go out to Hamilton Hills and Putt-Putt County or whatever it was called to look for a few horny cicadas. Now, maybe she was hurt. Or worse. Or maybe Putney County just has bad cell reception. The thing is, people had a habit of getting hurt whenever they got too close to me. It's always been this way. Last time, things ended so badly, and I swore I would never let it happen again. That's why I only work with machines. They can be replaced. People can't.
That's so offensive. You know I can hear everything you say, right?
I needed somewhere I could think and be alone. Completely alone. If only I could afford one of those sensory deprivation tanks. But then I realized I had free access to the next best thing. A few minutes later, I was on the roof, standing atop the building's 1,000-gallon water tank in some budgie smugglers and a pair of duck boots.
What's that guy doing on the roof?
Put on some pants, you creep.
I should have gone a size up. I tied a rope around my waist, adjusted my goggles, and... Oh my god, this water is too thick to be water. Okay, Campbell, clear your mind and go back through everything you've learned.
So we would go out looking for the cocoon almost exactly 10 years ago.
10. Everyone kept bringing up the number 10.
This was like 10 to 12 years ago.
I'm seeing 10. I'm seeing 10.
So what's the optimal number of bugs at an orgy?
I had 10 in one tank.
How many crabs were there, give or take?
I don't know, maybe like a dozen?
That's basically 10 if you subtract 2.
Are they singing anything specific?
A chorus line.
Dance 10 looks 3. And if you got that reference, you're at least a 6 on the Kinsey scale. And Caroline is from Tennessee. Okay, enough numerology for now. On to sex and bugs.
Put them all together and they had an orgy. I wish that I could hook up without touching feelings, you know.
We're hoping that we can identify any issues well before genitals start falling off.
Well, at the end of the day, I think everybody's a little gay, whether that be mammals or bugs.
Mammals or bugs. Sometimes it was hard to tell which one people were talking about. Hard to tell which one I was talking about.
Do you think there's the potential for a bug to mutate out of control in a new environment?
I am not sure, but that's what we're going to try to find out.
What does a bug look for in another bug, sexually speaking?
They're not really looking, they're actually smelling. The right perfume, the right cologne.
Like the smell of blood and the taste of flesh.
My dog died.
Are they cannibalizing each other? Largely what we're looking for is behavioral changes that could indicate something is going to go off.
I would probably be a praying mantis. I don't know, they're just so alien and they're so fierce. They don't mess around with men. As soon as they mate, they eat the man and it's done, baby.
I just saw Nick Cave last night, incredibly talented Australian musician, and dare I say, definitely a vampire.
Yes, nobody has theatrical panache like a Ponzi Pants vampire, except for maybe a solid gold dancer, or a rainbow-colored bug.
Or Christmas beetles, and they're beautiful. Like, they look like you would imagine a mermaid's tail to look like. That beautiful metallic rainbow gorgeousness.
They are sporting gorgeous gold wings. Gorgeous. A shiny thorax, red eyes.
Oh, God, the red eyes. Like the laser eyes of a death-bent robot.
Bugs are not biased. They're not picky. They treat everyone the same. To me, they're just like a little robot. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Little robots that do not like to be told what to do.
Believe it or not, bugs really don't like when we're around. They don't behave normally.
Was there sort of a hive mind, or were they sort of free agents?
They're kind of free agents.
Sounds like my royalty-free AI secretary.
I don't think people realize how often that they are using AI and how long they've been using it for. And that's the beautiful thing about machine learning is it perceives things that we can't with the human eye.
Yeah, little things. Like 10 little microscopic crabs.
They're very, very, very small. Wait a minute. There are things moving.
A chorus line.
The only shampoo on the market was banana scented. It comes with a little comb, like a novelty mustache comb.
The old man in front of the library had a mustache.
I don't trust him.
Oh, and speaking of old folks.
An elderly lady walking her tiny little dog, and a pelican swooping down, taking the dog and flying out into the ocean, but then just dropped it in the ocean. How helpless would you feel?
You know what else they call it when someone gives you the middle finger? The bird.
Birds, bugs, and cicadas.
Cicada. Like Salada, the cracker. You know how a snake sheds your skin? You'd see like a cicada skeleton shell.
Cool. Losing your shell sounds painful.
With insects, or can they feel pain? Or can they feel
praline in these parts?
Oh my God.
I was born and raised for this moment.
Caroline.
First of all, I am wearing Gucci.
Caroline.
I'm a Southern woman. I know how to dress.
It's my fault.
Jesus, take the wheel. The cicadas are coming. I'm telling you, this is what the ancient Egyptians saw.
Medieval monks considered the Egyptian pelican a symbol of Christ's ultimate sacrifice.
It seems apocalyptic right now. This is what Ramses fears. Don't get political. Love is love, and bug is bug.
Suddenly, everything went black. I looked up to see a majestic crescent moon. A white glove hand emerged from behind it, pinched the tip, and proceeded to peel its fibrous, cratered exoskeleton to reveal a telephone.
It's for you, Detective Campbell.
How did you know my name?
Detective Campbell.
I said, how did you...
Detective Campbell.
What?
Detective Campbell.
Wait a minute.
Detective Campbell.
Is that...
Detective Campbell?
I climbed the rope to the surface and was whipped by a cold night breeze. Ruby? What are you doing up here?
I hate to interrupt your wastewater cold plunge, Detective Campbell, but you've got a visitor.
Do they have an exoskeleton, 6-jointed limbs, and a pair of mouth stylets?
It's not a cicada.
Oh, thank God. Then who?
They wouldn't give me their name, but they had a bandage on their schnoz, just like you. They said they were looking for, and I quote, a failed child gymnast who couldn't crack a pistachio, let alone a case. They said Eve sent them.
That's impossible.
I told them I didn't know any child gymnasts, and that pistachio shells are typically pried rather than cracked, which is better suited to a walnut. What's wrong? Do you know who they are?
I think so. The best part-time detective I know. My ex-partner, who was also my ex-lover. But it can't be.
Why not?
Because they've been dead for a year. And I'm the one who killed them.
To be continued. The tape has ended. Please insert the next tape and press play. Meow.
Queerial is presented by You Made Me Queer and the Sonar Network. It's produced, written, hosted, and edited by me, Trevor Campbell. Don't believe me? Just look at my bloodshot eyes. This episode featured Kristopher, James, Truchan, Lauren, Deborah, Natalie, Duncan, an anonymous crap survivor, Caroline Moore, Slappy Davis, and a text-to-speech avatar named Kimberly with a K. You can learn more about them and their work in our show notes. Our theme and background music is by Critty. For more for work, visit lavenderbruisers.bandcamp.com. You can find extra clues and case notes for this episode at trevorcampbell.ca/Queerial. We're on Instagram with the handle @YouMadeMeQueer. If you want to stay on the case, subscribe to You Made Me Queer presents Queerial in your favorite podcast app. You can find it by searching for Queerial, You Made Me Queer, or the Sonar Network. Until next time, be careful out there. Things are getting queer.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network.
Sonar!